Let me tell you about a moment that didn't make the headlines, but should have. It wasn't a diss track. It wasn't a club brawl. It wasn't even a social media war. No, this was something deeper, something quieter, but just as explosive. Because behind the scenes of fame, money, and Instagram perfect lives, there's a reality most people never see. And last week, in a penthouse suite in Atlanta, King Harris' baby mama lost it. Not because of love, not because of betrayal, but because she realized she was about to lose the wealth. And she wasn't ready to go back to how things used to be. King Harris, the rising hip-hop star known for his smooth flow, flashy lifestyle, and ties to major labels, has been in the spotlight for his music. But behind the scenes, his personal life has been quietly unraveling. For over a year, he's been co-parenting with his baby mama. Let's call her Big Nana, the mother of his young son. They never got married, never lived together full-time. But through an agreement, both verbal and financial, Big Nana lived a life most can only dream of. A luxury apartment paid for by King. A black card for groceries, clothes, and school supplies. Private school for their son. Vacations, designer bags, first-class flights. In return, peace, stability, no drama. As long as she stayed quiet, stayed supportive, and didn't interfere with his career or relationships, the money kept flowing. This wasn't just support. It was a lifestyle. And Big Nana had fully adapted to it. She left her job, sold her old car, moved from her family's home in East Atlanta to a gated high-rise. She started calling herself a luxury mom. Posted subtle flexes, not too loud, not too flashy, just enough to let people know, I'm taken care of. But here's the thing about wealth that's given and not earned. It can disappear just as fast as it came. And that's exactly what started to happen. First, the card stopped working. Then the monthly transfer was late. Then it didn't come at all. And when Big Nana called King's manager to ask what was going on, she got a cold reply. The arrangement is under review. That's when the panic set in. Because this wasn't just about money. It was about identity. Her whole world, the car, the apartment, the way people looked at her in the lobby, was tied to King's success. And if that disappeared, she wasn't just losing a lifestyle. She was losing her status, her comfort, her sense of security. So she did what anyone in her position might do. She showed up, not at a studio, not at a concert, but at the penthouse where King was staying during his Atlanta promo run. She didn't come angry, not at first. She came scared. She wanted answers. She wanted to know, was this really ending? When King opened the door, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked at him and said, "You're not really going to take all of this away, are you?" And in that moment, something broke. Because King wasn't alone. His new girlfriend was there, sitting on the couch, wearing silk pajamas, sipping tea. And that's when Big Nana realized this wasn't just about money. It was about replacement. She didn't snap right away. She tried to stay calm. She reminded King of everything she'd done, staying quiet during his scandals, defending him online, never asking for more than the agreement promised. She brought up their son, said the school wasn't going to hold his spot without payment, that the landlord was already asking questions, that she'd sold her car, closed her bank account, and cut ties with her old life, all because she believed the support was permanent. But King stood firm, not out of cruelty, but because his life had changed. He was in a serious relationship. He wanted to build a new family, and his team had advised him to streamline expenses. Code 4, cut the unofficial payments. To him, it was business. To her, it was betrayal. That's when the fight erupted. Not physical, but emotional. Raw. Big Nana started listing everything she'd sacrificed. Her independence, her privacy, even her relationship with her own mother, who had warned her not to become dependent on a man's check. She said she felt like a vendor now, someone whose contract was expiring. And when she said, "You made me love this life, and now you're taking it away like it meant nothing," even King looked shaken. But the breaking point came when she said the words that changed everything. "If this ends, I'll have to tell people how much you really pay in child support, and how little it covers." It wasn't a threat. Not really. But in the world of celebrity image, even a whisper like that can start a fire. And that's when King's new girlfriend stood up. Calm, collected, But firm, she didn't yell. She didn't get in Big Nana's face. She just said, "You don't get to hold his success hostage." And in that moment, Big Nana realized she wasn't just losing the money. She was losing her place in his world completely. Now, let's be real. King Harris isn't obligated to support his baby mama beyond legal child support. And if he wants to build a new life, that's his right. But what this moment revealed is something bigger: the invisible economy of baby mamas in hip-hop culture, where unofficial support creates unofficial power, where silence is traded for luxury, and where, when the music changes, someone always gets left behind. Big Nana wasn't evil. She wasn't greedy. She was human. She believed the lifestyle was part of the deal. And when it started to slip away, she panicked. Because going from a penthouse to a 2-bedroom apartment isn't just a downgrade. It's a fall. And in this city where image is everything, that fall is felt in every glance, every comment, every "where's your new bag?" text from an old friend. However, to understand the gravity of that night, we have to go back, not just to when King Harris became a name in the rap game, but to who he was before the fame. 2 years ago, he wasn't headlining festivals or signing 6-figure deals. He was grinding, recording in basements, selling merch out of his trunk, chasing every open mic and radio plug. And during that time, he met Big Nana. Let's call her that to protect her privacy. A woman who wasn't drawn to the dream of fame, but to the man behind the mic. She was a school administrator, grounded, thoughtful, and emotionally intelligent. She didn't care about designer clothes or VIP sections. What she cared about was consistency, honesty, and building something real. When they met, it wasn't fireworks, it was warmth, a slow burn. And when she got pregnant, neither of them panicked. They made a decision, not to rush into marriage, not to force a fairy tale, but to co-parent with respect, care, and quiet commitment. They never lived together full-time. King traveled often, and Big Nana valued her independence. But they created a rhythm. He paid for their son's private school. She handled the day-to-day. He showed up for birthdays, holidays, and doctor's appointments. And when his career began to explode, the features, the viral tracks, the label interest, she was the first person he called. Not a manager, not a publicist. Her. She celebrated him not for the money or the fame, but because she knew how hard he'd worked. In her mind, they were building a life. Not a headline, not a reality show, but a quiet, stable future for their child. But behind the scenes, King was carrying a burden no one could see. For years, he had been living a version of himself that didn't quite fit. The charismatic ladies' man, the flirtatious rapper, the guy who smiled for photos with models and dropped lyrics about late-night encounters. It was expected. It was part of the image, and for a long time, he played the role. He dated women. He went on public outings. He even flirted in interviews. But the deeper he got into success, the more disconnected he felt from that persona. It wasn't that he disliked women. He respected them, cared for them, even loved Big Nana in his own way. But the truth was, he no longer felt attraction the way he was supposed to. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't dramatic. It was a slow unraveling. A growing awareness that his heart, his desires, his very sense of self were pointing in a direction he had spent years silencing. He didn't wake up one day and decide to be someone else. He simply stopped pretending. And that journey, the one no one saw, was filled with therapy sessions, late-night journaling, and conversations with a few trusted friends who reminded him that identity isn't a betrayal, it's a homecoming. He read about sexuality not as a binary, but as a spectrum. He learned about the pressure Black men in hip-hop face to conform to hyper-masculine, heteronormative standards, standards that have cost generations of artists their authenticity. And slowly, a truth formed. He was no longer interested in women. Not because he hated them, not because he didn't care for Big Nana, but because his truth was leading him elsewhere. He didn't want to hurt her. That's the most important thing to understand. This wasn't a cold dismissal. It wasn't avoidance. It was the opposite, a courageous act of honesty. He could have ghosted. He could have started dating someone else and let rumors do the talking. He could have let the relationship fade naturally, but he didn't. He asked to meet, just the two of them, no distractions, no phones recording, and when they sat down in her living room, with their son asleep in the next room, he looked her in the eyes and said the words that would change everything. He didn't use labels. He didn't make it about identity politics. He simply said, "I love you. I'll always care about you, but I have to be honest, I'm not interested in women anymore." And I can't keep pretending I am. The room went still. Big Nana didn't scream. She didn't cry right away. She just sat there, stunned, as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. Because this wasn't a breakup in the traditional sense. There was no affair, no disrespect, no anger. It was the end of a future she had built in her heart, even if it wasn't on paper. She had turned down proposals from other men because she believed King would eventually step into that role. She had told her son, "Daddy loves us," not knowing that the man who said those words was slowly realizing he could no longer live the life that came with them. And now she was being asked to accept that the man she loved, the father of her child, was becoming someone she could no longer be with, not because of hate, but because of honesty. The aftermath was quiet, but profound. Big Nana didn't post about it. She didn't leak the conversation. She didn't try to shame him. Instead, she withdrew, not out of anger, but out of grief. She began therapy not to get over him, but to rebuild her sense of self outside of being King Hair's baby mama. She went back to work full-time. She moved into a new apartment, closer to her family, and she started asking herself hard questions. Who am I outside of this? What did I sacrifice to be part of his world? Meanwhile, King stepped back, not from fatherhood, but from the romantic expectation. He made it clear he would always be there for his son. He would support him financially, emotionally, and publicly. But he needed space to live openly, to explore his truth without fear. He began seeing someone, quietly, privately, a man he'd met through mutual friends in the art world. No photos, no interviews, just peace. And for the first time in years, he felt like he could breathe. This story isn't about blame. It's not about who was right or wrong. It's about the cost of silence in a culture that doesn't allow men, especially black men in hip-hop, to be vulnerable. King wasn't rejecting Big Nana. He was freeing himself, and in doing so, he exposed a painful truth. That love doesn't always get a happy ending, especially when identity evolves. Big Nana's pain is real. She loved a man who turned out to be someone else. But King's journey is also valid. He spent years hiding, fearing rejection, loss of fans, industry backlash, and now he's finally living. The tragedy isn't that they're apart. It's that the world made it so hard for him to be honest sooner. If King had been able to explore his identity earlier, without fear, maybe Big Nana wouldn't have invested so deeply in a future that wasn't possible. Maybe they could have navigated this together, as co-parents and friends, instead of as heartbroken former partners. In the end, no police were called. No social media posts were made. The fight ended with Big Nana walking out, tears in her eyes, clutching her phone like it was her last lifeline. And King, he stayed silent. But sources say he later increased the official child support, not out of guilt, but to avoid exposure. Meanwhile, the new girlfriend has made it clear, no more unofficial payments. No more backdoor support. From now on, everything is documented. Everything is controlled. So what's the lesson here? Maybe it's this. In the world of fame and fast money, nothing is promised. Not loyalty, not love, not even the life you've grown used to. And when you tie your piece to someone else's paycheck, you risk losing both. Big Nana thought she was secure, but security built on someone else's success is fragile. And when the beat drops, sometimes the only thing left is silence. Drop a like if you believe baby mamas deserve stability, but not at the cost of their power. Comment. Protect the peace if you think both parents should coexist without drama. And if you've ever had to rebuild after losing a lifestyle, share your story below. We see you. Subscribe for real stories behind the fame. Turn on notifications. New drama drops every week.